I was 13 when my life split into two clean chapters, before and after, and the moment everything changed wasn't loud or dramatic, but quiet enough to feel like a betrayal whispered in the dark. I woke to a note on the kitchen table, folded once, its message as cold as the morning air: stay at a friend's. Back in a week. Love you. No name, no warmth, just my mother's elegant handwriting softening a truth that still landed hard. By the time I found it, my parents were already on their way to Florida, leaving me behind like something they forgot to pack. My older sister, Jasmine Mountain, posted a picture with her pink suitcase and a cheerful caption about family time, while my little sister, Lily Mountain, followed it with palm tree emojis. I waited on the porch, backpack balanced on my knees, convinced the note was just the beginning and that someone, anyone, was about to arrive. An aunt, a neighbor, a stroke of luck. No one came. Street lights flickered. A dog barked at me as if I didn't belong on my own steps. I warmed a burrito I didn't even like, eating it at the counter, pretending the microwave's buzz counted as conversation. By the second day, I insisted it must be a mistake. By the fourth, a whisper of a thought crept in. Maybe it wasn't an accident. Being the middle child had always meant serving as the quiet bridge between the star act and the finale. Jasmine collected awards and varsity letters. Lily had dance recitals, braces, and color match parties. I had responsible, which adults used to mean unseen. But being forgotten on purpose introduced a whole new kind of silence. 6 days in, I left the library carrying a tower of borrowed books stacked like armor. The heat shimmered, blurring even my shadow. That's when a glossy black car slowed to the curb, windows sliding down like something from someone else's life. Alma, a voice called, half familiar. Uncle Richard, the rich one who'd skipped family holidays before I could even count double digits, stood there. Mom always called him conceited, which I now understood meant he kept his boundaries. He looked at my sweat-stuck hair, my backpack, and the tight smile I used as a shield. Why are you out here alone? Where are your parents? I muttered, Florida. The word felt absurd, like telling him they'd flown to another planet. He murmured something under his breath, then said, get in. You're not walking anywhere tonight. Every safety lecture I'd ever heard about strangers screamed in my head, but my empty stomach, after 3 nights of instant noodles, had its own louder logic. Hunger counts as danger too. The car smelled of leather and something sharp and new, not citrus, not perfume, just money that hadn't gone stale. He drove to a diner with cracked red booths and pies trapped beneath glass domes. When the burger and milkshake arrived, I stared, convinced they might vanish if I blinked. He didn't pressure me to talk. He let me eat first, then asked about school, friends, what I cared about. History, I said, though mainly the parts everyone misremembers. That answer made him smile slightly, as if he discovered a small secret about me. When we reached my street again, he didn't park. Pack a bag, he said. I blinked. What? You're not staying alone on a sofa while your parents shop for sunscreen. Pack, Alma. Some moments open the world like it has hidden hinges. The door to his home swung open, and his house felt like another planet. The guest bed looked too soft to touch. I perched carefully on its edge, afraid even to wrinkle the blanket. He leaned against the frame and raised an eyebrow. They can be washed, he said with warmth instead of mockery. Things exist to be used, not fed. Morning came with orange juice poured into a real glass. At home, our cups were sun-fed souvenirs that still smelled faintly of plastic. I held his glass as if it might break from being looked at wrong. It's just juice, not a legal agreement, he teased. When my teacher asked who would attend my meeting that week, he answered without pause, I will. The calm weight of those words loosened something inside me that had been clenched for months. He bought me jeans and a sweater, and I hid the tags, convinced he'd want them back. He handed me lunch money, which I saved and ate crackers with, because spending felt like trespassing. 12 days later, he found me in the kitchen at midnight, crouched over a cereal box. Why? He asked. Are you rehearsing to be a raccoon? I told him I didn't want to take too much. He scooped pasta into a bowl, warmed it, and pushed it toward me. If it's in this house, it belongs to everyone who lives here, he said. That means you too. I nodded, swallowing against the sting in my throat, determined not to let tears fall into the pasta. Crying felt extravagant. I expected the front door to shake with my parents' arrival, to demand me back like something borrowed too long. But the days kept passing. Then weeks. No knock, no call. Jasmine filled her feed with beach pictures, Lily with shells pressed to her cheek. My name never showed up beneath any of it. I whispered, flipping open my new journal and writing, "Things here are meant to be used, not feared. If something is inside this house, it belongs to everyone who lives within it. I am in this house." By the time I turned 14, Uncle Richard had reached two conclusions about me. First, my posture was atrocious. Second, under that slouch, I carried promise. He tapped my shoulder whenever I folded inward. "Stand tall, Alma. You're not punctuation. People believe you more when you look like you already believe yourself." At first, it sounded like a line from a poster. Eventually, I caught myself mid-hunch, straightening, pretending confidence until it began to feel real. Teachers noticed. I began speaking up, raising my hand, joining debate club after he bribed me with pizza. At my first competition, my voice wobbled like bad speakers, but I won, arguing that cats made better pets. Uncle Richard grinned quietly from the back, the kind of grin that said, "See? Told you." He wasn't just a caretaker, he was a collection of lessons disguised as daily life. When I asked for a new phone, he said, "Sounds great. How much have you saved?" I blinked. "None." "Then you'll appreciate it twice as much once you've earned it." I got my first job bagging groceries, and when I earned my first paycheck, I waved it like a trophy. He didn't take it. He drove me to the bank instead. "Two-part rule," he said. "Save half, spend half. That way you can enjoy today without rubbing tomorrow." At the time, I rolled my eyes, but I'd later realize that one sentence became the spine of everything I built. Holidays used to be theater productions I never auditioned for. At Uncle Richard's, Christmas carried a quieter rhythm, full in a true way. His gifts weren't extravagant, just carefully chosen. A gently used copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, a fountain pen, a scarf he said matched my debate face. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed with photos from the mountains. My parents and sisters posed beside palm trees, with no note saying, "Wish you were here." The hurt stung, but it no longer emptied me. I was learning what family could look like when it wasn't for show. One Christmas, he passed me a small box. Inside was a silver keychain engraved Mountain in Carlton. "A work in progress," he said. "Because that's what both of us are. You're learning to build. I'm learning not to do it alone." Words failed, so I hugged him, clumsy and awkward, but he didn't let go first. That night, in my journal, I wrote, "You don't need shed blood to share a home." By 16, Uncle Richard began taking me to his office during summers. I was terrified, surrounded by pressed suits, shining desks, people who carried themselves like gravity worked differently for them. He leaned close and whispered, "Relax. They put their pants on one leg at a time. Some even fall over doing it." That became our running joke whenever I felt small. One leg at a time, kid. He taught me lessons no classroom ever touched. How to listen before answering. How to see what people meant, not what they said. How to grip a hand like you meant it. "Half the world bluffs," he said once. "The other half apologizes for existing." Learn to do neither. That was the first time I believed maybe I could build something more than survival. At 17, the contrast between where I came from and where I was now felt sharp enough to draw blood. Jasmine posted college acceptance news tagging everyone but me. Lily posed beside her new car, captioned, "Thanks, Mom and Dad." I stared at the photo while Uncle Richard brewed tea. "How long do you plan to wait for them to remember you?" he asked. I didn't answer. That night, I stopped waiting for the mountains to turn around and began remembering myself. During senior year, he handed me a small box before prom. Inside was a slender silver bracelet with a tiny engraved A. "Don't chase approval, Alma. Chase peace. Approval is borrowed. Peace is something you keep." I didn't know it yet, but that line was a signpost for everything that would follow: the heartbreak, the betrayal, the showdown. But in that moment, I smiled, clasped the bracelet, and told him he sounded like a fortune cookie. He laughed, then said, "Make sure you open it before it's stale." That night, beneath strings of lights and a DJ who loved volume more than rhythm, I laughed without checking if anyone noticed. No invisible leash pulling me back. No note taped to a fridge saying, "Back in a week." Just me. Alma Mountain, unfinished but real, finally learning what it felt like to be seen. College had never been part of the script my parents wrote. Jasmine was the prodigy, Lily the golden child, and I, the realist, the one expected not to hope too high. Uncle Richard didn't hand me tuition, he made me fight for every piece. We spent hours at the kitchen table, surrounded by spreadsheets, loan guides, and financial aid forms until the numbers swam. Scholarships first, he insisted, grants second. My help filled the gaps, not the base. So I hunted. There was a scholarship for left-handed students. I spent 2 weeks teaching myself to write lefty. Another targeted descendants of beekeepers, so I composed an essay on the sacred balance between bees and humans, even though my only real encounter involved sprinting from one in 3rd grade. Bit by bit, I stitched together a future. When the acceptance envelope from Western Summit University arrived, Uncle Richard examined it like a deal he'd personally brokered. "Congratulations," he said, his voice steady but proud. His eyes shone when he added, "Now go prove them right." Move-in day was chaos. Parents' juggle boxes, balloons bobbed, everyone cried in doorways. Mine didn't come. Not a message, not even a good luck. Uncle Richard carried every box up 3 flights in the August heat, his shirt sticking to his back, but refused to let me lift the heavy ones. "This counts as my annual workout," he joked. "Don't tell my trainer I actually broke a sweat." When the room was finally set, I took in the mismatched sheets, the thrift store lamp, the faint bleach smell, and felt a pang twist deep inside. He must have noticed. "Don't look for them here, Elma. Look forward. That's the direction you're headed." I nodded, throat tight. Before leaving, he handed me a small envelope. Inside, a note in his neat block handwriting read, "If you ever doubt you belong, check your reflection. You got here without them." I taped it inside my planner and kept it there all 4 years. Those first months were rough. I felt like an intruder in every class, the girl in second-hand shoes carrying detergent-scented bags instead of luxury ones. But Uncle Richard called every Sunday without fail, sometimes just to tease. "So, Miss Dean's list, still living on ramen and determination?" "Barely," I'd reply. "Good," he'd say. "Struggle keeps you sharp." His voice became a kind of gravity. In my sophomore year, I met Ethan Cole, the kind of person who could make a room exhale. We met volunteering at a community garden. He was actually planting things. I was pretending to know how a shovel worked. He offered to show me, and I rolled my eyes but let him. Months later, we started seeing each other slowly, carefully, but it was real. Ethan wasn't a hero. He didn't try to save me. He respected me, and that meant more than I'd ever expected. During finals one night, he asked, "Why do you double-check everything, even the tiniest stuff?" I hesitated, then said, "Because for a long time, I was the mistake nobody fixed." He didn't offer cliches. He simply took my hand and said, "Then let's make sure no one overlooks you again." That was the moment I realized he truly saw me, not as the forgotten middle child, but as someone who'd carved out her own light. By junior year, an old ghost surfaced. Sabrina, Ethan's ex, the kind of girl who could turn remorse into theater, started showing up at campus gatherings again, all smiles and polished charm, complimenting my clothes while her eyes swept the room for an audience. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. One night, she let slip that Ethan had met her for coffee to help with a business plan. Later, he told me the truth. She reached out, said she needed advice, and he said he didn't think it was a big deal. It shouldn't have been, but that old sting of being replaced and forgotten came rushing back. That night, Uncle Richard's words replayed in my mind. Half the world bluffs. The other half apologizes for existing. Do neither. So, I didn't accuse Ethan. I didn't plead. I simply said, "Next time, let her find someone else's generosity." He nodded. No protest. No defensiveness. That quiet acceptance told me more than any speech could. By senior year, everything aligned like a long-delayed sunrise. I earned my degree in civil engineering, the same field Uncle Richard had once described as the art of creating what endures. He sat in the front row at graduation, clapping so loudly the dean paused to look up. Afterwards, he handed me a modest silver pen. "Use this to sign the contracts you'll be proud of," he said. I smiled. "Not my autograph." He chuckled. "One day. Build first, brag later." While others celebrated that night, I stayed in my dorm, rereading the journal he'd given me at 13. Its pages were filled now with lessons, tiny victories, scrolled gratitude. One line stood out like a heartbeat. "If it's in this house, it belongs to the people in this house." That house wasn't just a structure anymore, it was my life. For the first time, I truly felt I lived inside it. After graduation, I joined a small engineering firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it was solid in mine. Ethan found work in the same city, and for the first time, the path ahead felt like my own. Every Friday, Uncle Richard and I met for dinner. He'd lift his glass of whiskey and tease. "Look at you, Miss Mountain, scaling the ladder without tripping." I'd laugh. "Give it time. I still might." What I didn't want to see were the changes, the fatigue in his voice, the way he rubbed his shoulder after lifting grocery bags, the slight pause before remembering a familiar place. I told myself it was just age creeping in. I didn't know it was the quiet overture to everything about to break. The strongest people don't collapse in one dramatic fall. They fade first, quietly, almost gracefully, until you realize you've been carrying what they used to hold. It began subtly, the kind of change you tell yourself not to analyze. Uncle Richard started canceling our Friday dinners, claiming work was brutal lately, words I'd never heard him use before. Then one evening, when I stopped by without calling, I found him asleep in his armchair at 8 p.m. The TV murmured an infomercial to no one. When I touched his shoulder, he startled awake, forcing a smile that came too quickly. "Long day," he said, voice thin. The smile stopped short of his eyes. The signs multiplied. Prescription bottles lined the counter. His hand trembled slightly as he poured his coffee. He'd tell the same story twice in one evening. I noticed. He noticed me noticing. Together, we slipped into a quiet pact of denial. He still checked in on me, calm and steady, the same way he always had when I was learning to build a life from ruins. "You're doing well at work," he told me once, after I vented about a difficult client. "Just remember, jobs replace you in a week. People won't if you choose the right ones." That line struck deeper than any performance review. I didn't realize it then, but it was his way of preparing me for a world where he might not be there to say it. Months went by. My career gained traction. My footing felt firm. Ethan and I found a rhythm that worked. His marketing job, my engineering projects, both of us steady. But every time Richard brushed off a cough or waved away my concern, that steadiness cracked a little more. Then came the call, a Tuesday that blurred into panic. "Ms. Mountain, this is Grace from Mr. Carlton's office. He collapsed during a meeting. They've taken him to St. Luke's Hospital." The drive was a haze of red lights and the drumbeat of my heart in my hands. When I finally reached his room, he looked impossibly small against all that white. Still, when he saw me, he managed a crooked grin. "Don't look so grim," he rasped. "Told them I wanted a free night stay. 5-star, if you ignore the food." I tried to laugh, but my throat burned. "You scared me," I whispered. He shrugged faintly. "First time for everything." Then, softer still, "Sit, kid." The room settled into stillness, just the quiet pulse of machines and the soft shuffle of footsteps beyond the door. "You know," he said, raspier than ever, "I always thought your dad would be the one teaching you these things, how to stand tall, manage money, argue without raising your voice, but I'm glad it turned out to be me." "Don't talk like that," I whispered. "Like what?" "Like, you." I couldn't finish. He gave that half-smile again, the one that carried more comfort than words ever could. "Honest," he said, taking my hand, a rare gesture. "You've exceeded every expectation anyone ever had for you, Alma. Just remember one thing." "What's that?" "You're not the extra piece. You never were." My vision blurred. I blinked fast, unwilling to let tears win. He smirked faintly. If you get these sheets wet, you're paying the dry cleaning bill. I laughed, the sound cracking halfway through. For a heartbeat, the world felt normal again. He stayed in the hospital a few nights, then came home, slower, quieter, still pretending nothing had changed. That final Christmas, he gave me a box wrapped in gold. Inside was the same leather journal he'd given me at 13. Only now it wasn't blank. Every page was filled. Short notes, advice, jokes, rough sketches, even taped restaurant receipts with scribbles like best burger of 2014. Still not worth the calories. The last page made me stop breathing. His handwriting trembled but stayed legible. If they ever try to erase you again, remember this. You've already written your own chapter. You've been writing in this all these years. I asked. He shrugged. Couldn't let you keep all the good lines for yourself. I leaned in and hugged him, a real one. He chuckled, murmuring, easy, you'll break a rib. But I held on a little longer, because something in me knew it was the last time I'd hear that laugh in the same room. Months later, the call came. I didn't answer right away. Grace's voice cracked. Miss Mountain, I'm so sorry. Richard passed away in his sleep this morning. The world went soundless. I sat frozen on my bed, phone clutched in my hand, staring at the wall as if sheer focus could force the world back into order. The days that followed dissolved into a blur. Calls, documents, funeral arrangements. He'd named me executor. Naturally, no one else would know the details that mattered. Which tie he called a serious one, which songs made him grimace, how much he despised lilies and preferred simple white roses. The service was small, elegant, just as he would have wanted. My parents and sisters appeared, cloaked in staged grief, their eyes already calculating inheritance. I didn't respond. I simply turned and walked away. Within a week, the flood began. Texts, voicemails, social media requests. My mother's voice dripped false warmth. Jasmine slid a message into my DMs about estate matters, while Lily sent an emoji trying to make grief fashionable. Not long after, Uncle Richard's attorney, Mr. Halpern, called. The will reading was scheduled. He said it might be eventful. The law office smelled of leather, old money, and quiet satisfaction. Mr. Halpern sat at the head of the mahogany table. My family lined the opposite side, wrapped in designer grief. Halpern read the will with deliberate precision. Debts cleared, minor donations, gifts to long-term staff. Then he turned to the remainder. To my arranged relatives who remembered me only when my bank balance suited their needs, I leave nothing. The silence split the room. My mother gasped. Jasmine's mouth fell open. Lily blinked. He wasn't joking. Then he continued. To my niece, Alma Mountain, abandoned at 13 but never absent since, I leave the entirety of my estate. All assets, properties, accounts, and holdings. 4 pairs of eyes locked on me. Shock, disbelief, anger. I kept my tone steady. He knew me for 15 years. You just stopped paying attention. My father's face flushed crimson. You manipulated him. You poisoned him against his family. I rested my palm on the journal, fingertips tracing its soft leather. No, you did that yourselves. The day you left me with a note on the fridge. Lily tried her practice sweetness. Come on, Elma. You're not really keeping everything, are you? We're family. I let out a slow breath and smiled, weary but firm. Funny. 15 years of silence doesn't sound much like family, but now that there's money on the table, suddenly we're related again. Halpern closed the folder with a soft snap. The will is airtight. Any contest will be dismissed immediately. My mother opened her mouth, thought better of it. The disbelief curdled into anger, the same look they wore years ago when they realized I no longer needed their permission to exist. I smoothed my dress and stood. If you'll excuse me, I have things to take care of. Mr. Halpern, thank you for your time. Jasmine hissed, this isn't over. I met her gaze evenly. It was over when you stopped calling me your sister. I turned and walked out. Outside, the air felt new, sharper, cleaner, as if the world had been holding its breath and finally exhaled. Sunlight bounced off the glass facade, momentarily blinding. In that flash, I saw myself, Not the scared 13-year-old waiting for someone who never came, but a woman standing on her own ground, exactly where she chose to be. I pulled out my phone and typed a message I wished could reach him. Wish you were here to see their faces. Old man. You were right. I wrote my own chapter. I hit send to nowhere, to everywhere. Later that week, I stood on the balcony of Richard's house, my house now, watching city lights shimmer like the heartbeat of everything he had built and left behind. I held the journal, flipping to its final page once more. The ink had faded slightly, but the words burned bright. If they ever try to erase you again, remember this. You've already written your own chapter. I smiled. I did, I whispered, and I'll keep writing. Ethan stepped onto the balcony, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. You okay? I nodded, leaning into him. Yeah. Feels like full circle. He looked out at the city beneath us. He'd be proud, you know. I tilted my face toward the soft blue sky. I think he already is. Below us, the city lights shimmered like turning pages. For the first time, the story belonged entirely and irrevocably to me.